Hey guys, so today's 7 on Sunday. I'm trying to get my little new hat that I bought like in the shop, but I'm actually using like one of my new bookshelves as a tripod because I'm doing something else and I'm trying to like fit in making my 7 on Sunday video. So I'm using my new shelf, so I'm not technically fully in the shop, but like look at it, it's cute. It's meant to be like a pumpkin, but it's like a little witch's hat and it's adorable. But today is literally Halloween, it's the 31st, so that's pretty exciting, even though I am actually on a diet at the moment, so I'm not going to be doing the whole giving out candy thing. But also we've only recently just come out of lockdown, so it's a bit more concerning to have people turning up, so we haven't put up any decorations, and we'll probably do it next year. But just this year it just seemed a bit too soon to be able to do all this stuff. But I really wanted to do this video because we're going to be talking about some dark book recommendations. And it's ironic that I'm excited for this theme, considering I don't actually read that many dark books. Like, I am not a horror or creepy fan, so a lot of my book recommendations are literally all of the books that I have read that are a bit thrillery, a bit scary, and you're gonna probably know all of them. But I'm really excited still to do this video when it's the last 7 on Sunday for October, and we're gonna get all our new themes next week. And obviously if you want to keep up to date with all of that, I would recommend going on the Goodreads and also following Grace over at G Swizzle, because she's the creator of 7 on Sunday and she has all the information that you will ever need. The first book I'm going to mention is The Girl on the Train by someone Hawkins, like Paula Hawkins. It's been a long time since I've thought about this book, but the reason I am recommending it is if you wanted kind of like a really good thriller, this is a really good one to read, just because I was really excited reading this book because I really wanted to know what had happened, and the way that the main character was just obsessed with the love story that the couple that she used to see on the train, and how she was so like enamored by them, and then when stuff started to go wrong and bad and she got like really obsessed with trying to figure it out and she kind of put herself into the narrative. I thought it was like a really interesting concept, but I also just really liked trying to figure out what was going on and how different things were linked and just what was happening, and a lot of stuff kept getting thrown at you. And I also read this just before the movie came out, and I also think that Emily Blunt really did portray this very, very well. So I would highly recommend reading the book before the movie, but it has been a long time since both have come out. And on the same strand, I'm going to mention Black Ice by Becca Fitzpatrick, because this one was another murder mystery that took place kind of in like this cabin area with two girls that were going on holiday, and then some weird stuff started to happen. This random dude kind of showed up and we weren't really sure what was going on there because there was just a lot of weird things happening in this story. Like, I don't remember a lot of key details, but I remember just being very thrilled throughout the whole entire reading experience because I didn't know what was going to happen in this story, and every time something did happen it was just like go, go, go. And again, if you definitely want that like feeling of just like being really anxious when you're reading, pick this one up. And again, another one I'm going to mention is Sadie by Courtney Summers. This is honestly my favorite thriller mystery that I've ever read because it was such a unique reading experience. Like, I highly recommend listening to the audiobook for one, because it has over 40 different voice actors and they do it in such a really great way that you literally feel like you're there in the story. And Sadie's character also has a stutter, so being able to hear her actually speak throughout the reading experience was very unique as well. The idea of this too though is half of it's from Sadie's POV and then the other half of it is a podcast by West McGrath or something is his name, and basically you see Sadie in her first person POV and she's going along trying to figure out what happened to her sister, but then we see West going along behind her trying to figure out what she's done. So obviously there's things that we see that West finds out before Sadie finds out and vice versa, and it just really adds to the element of just being like really concerned about everything. But it was definitely a really unique story. And of course I'm also going to mention The Project, which is also by Courtney Summers, because as I said, my recommendations are really not that sparse, and I've just realized literally all of the books I'm mentioning are mysteries because that's just how I roll. This one was actually really interesting because it took place in a cult, so it's about trying to figure out what's going on with this cult, what's happening. And our main character Lo, her sister B, went into this like group like 6 years ago and she hasn't heard from her, and she's finally found a way to get into the group to try and find out what happened to her sister, to see how she was able to be like captured by this like group that was talking about all the good things that they can do. And it was just a very good story, and it had a really interesting timeline too because we were following both characters' POVs, but B was like in the past trying to catch up and then Lo was in the present, so it was really interesting as well to have stuff like interconnect as the story was going along as well. But this one definitely had me on the edge of my seat the whole time, and I also buddy read this one with Miranda, and we had so many different theories and ideas of what was going to happen that when we got to the end of the book, we were just like, oh my god, this was amazing. I'm gonna be talking about one of the OG mystery thrillers, but that is We Were Liars by E. Lockhart. Like, I really feel that at the time that we all read this book, it really took the world by storm, and it is one of the first ones where I was kind of reading it and I was very confused kind of throughout the whole book because I wasn't really sure what the vibe was, and then you got to the end and it was just like, what just happened at the end of this book? I am so confused. And honestly, I could give this book a reread, but I don't think it would top my first reading experience of just being so hella confused of like, how? But if you are someone that's had this book for a really long time, I'm so sorry that you missed out on the time that we all read this, but I'm sure you can still read it and appreciate the story for what it was. Next, I want to talk about One of Us is Lying by Karen M. McManus, and it has been a hot minute since I've talked about this book. I honestly don't think I've talked about it since my review that I filmed like 4 years ago, and I still can't believe that that is my most popular video on my channel. Like, it just keeps growing and growing and growing, that we're now at 28,000 views for that video, and especially with the TV show coming out, my video has been getting hype again, which is like really fun for me. But I definitely think that this was like a really fun story trying to figure out what actually happened, and I like that even though every character was a stereotypical, like, you know, jock and beauty and geek and rebel, the story was done in such an interesting way that they felt still like their own characters and not a stereotype, which I really enjoyed reading about. And the mystery really did like capture me, like from the beginning to the end, and even though I was a little bit disappointed in how it actually ended, I still had a really good time with this. And last but definitely not least, I'm going to talk about Truly Devious by Maureen Johnson. This is still one of my favorite trilogies, and I love the character so much. It's got such a unique concept in my mind because it's a dual timeline story, so we're actually following characters from the case 80 years ago, and then we're following Stevie and her friends as she tries to figure out what happened at the school where the murder took place. And the audiobook experience is what I would highly recommend, just because we actually get to see like all the different voices and we really get to feel the tones of the story, and it was so interesting trying to figure out what actually happened. And what I loved about it too is like, the first book kind of solved some things, but it really didn't solve a lot, so you're kind of sitting there by the end of the first one like, what? And then as you keep reading, just like more stuff keeps progressing and the story starts to take more shape and form. But what my favorite thing about it is, obviously it just doesn't end in the first book. Like, there is so much more that you get to go through and try to figure out what's going on with the story. It was just so amazing. And then when we get The Box in the Woods, which is like a whole new murder mystery but with the same characters, it's nice to see that the format still has stayed, even though that one is a standalone. But if you have been looking for a reason to read this series, just do it based off my recommendation, because I loved it so much and I want more people to read it and to see people talking about it because it's such a good trilogy. But anyway guys, that is all for today's video of talking about some dark book recommendations. I know all of them are very, very tame, and if you are looking for a lot more darker, I'm sorry to disappoint, but hopefully you enjoy. Please probably don't recommend me any that are going to make me like really scared, because like, I'm not about that. But anyway guys, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!